you gotta advertise these, nobody knew there was alternate positions open for the Board of Review. And it just, in the interest of transparency, you gotta advertise this stuff to give everybody a chance. And I'm not saying a candidate isn't qualified, but you have to open it up. And you guys were ready to appoint, somebody last, meeting to the ZBA and put the brakes on and said, wait, no, we need to advertise it. And so that's why I was very surprised when I saw Board of Review, which is not on the website at all. There's no information on that committee, on the website, and there's been no indication that there weren't even alternates. But we need to open that up. It's in the interest of transparency. Otherwise it makes it look like things are being done backdoor, and that's not good for the public.
Any other discussion?
So my Matt Hubbard, Cato Township, my understanding is that that's Cato property. It's not the village property, so it's not up to the village to just have a hearing. You guys should definitely be aware of what's going on, and that just looks really sad that you don't even have a clue.
But they can't take it away from me, they have to notify us.
Larry stated that they don't have to, if it goes to the county, they don't have to, so I'm confused.
I don't know on that, but.
Pat, do you know about that? You've probably been through a couple of those.
Yeah, it's confusing, it never made any sense to me in the beginning, but I guess I've got it through my head now. They don't have to ask the township, there's no township involvement in annexation. I think the reason for that is it doesn't change anything, it's still a Cato Township parcel. You still collect the same tax by the village annexing it, then that parcel will have the village tax on top of it, but the township doesn't lose anything. So I think that's the reason the township doesn't have a say in it. By law, the annexing body has to bring it to the county board for approval. And I think in the past, the village had run those by the township as a courtesy thing, possibly to get buy-in from people on that last annexation, but they don't have to, and there's no vote. If the township, for whatever reason, disagrees with it, you could come to the Board of Commissioners and state your displeasure, but you wouldn't have any voice as a township board. You wouldn't be any more than just any other resident that have a voice that wasn't pleased with it.
But to me, that sounds like something that should go to our attorney to ask and get clarification. It would be a perfect question for her.
There you go.
I kind of really not finished, so if you're gonna ask Pat to answer, I should be able to say something, because the master plan says Cato Township, it doesn't say the village.
Everybody in the village is a.
I'm not on the board, but I know the master plan talks about Cato Township has the right to set rules and regulations, and what he just said is saying the village can take away our property, and that's totally not, no way.
But Matt, they're not. Everyone in the village is part of Cato Township.
I understand
So
that,
if they're
but
adding village
the
onto
village can
that
grow
property,
without us saying they can.
It takes away zoning.
Yes.
It takes away zoning. I'm not on your board, but I get understanding of different things, how it works.
I don't, it's no use calling the attorney because they can't change
Well, I'd like your clarification of that. It kind of sounds like everybody's confused. It sounds like nobody on your board understands. And I'm not saying against yay or nay, I'm just saying we need to
If Pat
understand.
is right, they still pay the same tax.
So why wouldn't we ask our attorney if Pat's right or not? I mean, I'm
He's
just
right.
confused
He
with
is
that.
right. We've
You're
been
will-
through this before.
You're willing to ask an individual in our township over an attorney. That's
They have
really confusing,
advertised.
Larry.
They have
But my
advertised.
public comment's over.
I'm just trying to explain a little bit. They have advertised, they've done what they had, it would have been nice if they would have said something to us.
I'm not against it, I'm just,
The only thing is, people that live in somebody in that area is asked to be annexed into the village. They probably want water and sewer.
well, he's on the village board and he's not a citizen.
I'll find out tomorrow.
I'm just curious, why wouldn't they ask the whole, why just one property owner ask and get it? I mean, maybe that whole side of that Cutler Road would be interested
I
in,
can't answer your question.
yeah, probably, that's good.
Any-
I'm just curious why.
Stand up back.
Jessica Cueco, Cato Township. I hesitate to even speak out because since we started speaking out, our family's been targeted and harassed by specific people. I honestly find it very comical that we're having such an issue with the blight ordinances and with the issues Townships, back in February of 2021, we found out about Apex. March, we started showing up to meetings and, speaking our concerns. April, we ended up with a blight zoning violation ordinance, or what was it? A ticket for, storage of pallets, a burn pile, and wrapped package shingles that were just to be used on a different job. And we said, we thought to ourselves, this is our property, we should be able to store our items. So we said, no, we're not gonna move it, and so we ended up getting another ticket. And that one ended up going to court, because we said, well, we don't think that we should have to move our items, and court came back and said, nope, you have to move your items. Said, well, this is our property, we're not going to. Needless to say, we wrote a letter to the judge explaining why we didn't feel like we needed to move those items. Judge did not agree with us. We ended up with a $250 fine.
500.
Oh, yes, $500 fine. So we paid that immediately because I didn't want anything held over our head. Next month, we ended up with the exact same ticket, exact same issue. Although this time, it wasn't, just a fine, it was 6 months in jail or a $500 fine. And, once again, we said we shouldn't have to move our items because the same people that are trying to enforce the blight in our townships in our county are trying to erect 700-foot towers. So, should I really have to move my pallet and my burn pile? I really didn't think that we should, because it wasn't causing an issue to anybody. It wasn't harming anybody. Maybe somebody was upset when they drove past and saw that we were using our property. God forbid we do that. So we said we weren't gonna move our items. Ends up 4 days before court, I end up with COVID. I am 3 weeks from being due with child number 10. Yes, we have a large family, we have 10 children. So we decided that we probably shouldn't push it, and we should probably comply. We should probably move our items because it wasn't smart for me or my husband to have to go to jail for 6 months for not moving our items that we are storing on our property. I have hesitated for a very long time to even speak up about this because I fear that our family will once again be targeted because there are certain people in this community and certain people in this Buncombe Township that specifically want to target individuals, and I'm not sure why. It's very disheartening. Needless to say, the Murphys were sweet enough to drop off their silo, or they're not silo, they're thing so we can move our items to a building or behind a wall. So nobody would have to look at our items when they drive by our house, even though there's only 3 houses on our street. We have lived in our house, before that lived in our house for over 5 years. We had not had any issues at all. I'm not sure if we were being targeted, but I'm pretty sure by the looks of it, we were getting targeted because we were speaking out. I honestly see it as very comical that Maple Valley, the guy, he got a $150 fine, right? And he only paid $75 of it. Is that correct? That's what I read in the Daily News article about it. That made me sick to my stomach. That issue is still going on, that it is a safety concern, that people cannot pass on either side of the road. It is a safety concern to a lot of citizens. Anybody driving on that road, it's a safety concern. And to see that issue still hasn't gotten taken care of, I'm confused. I don't understand it. Dave, you were the one that wrote us the ticket, and you couldn't even tell us what specifically needed to be moved. We had multiple conversations where you could not clearly tell us what needed to be moved. I'm pretty sure that we upset somebody, probably one of our neighbors. But then we called our neighbors, the one that lives directly across the street. I went over and talked to her. I made sure, because they were new, they had just moved in, I wanted to make sure that they didn't have an issue. So I went over there. I made sure that they were the ones that reported us. Of course not. They said, we're neighbors. I would have came over and talked to you first. I would have told you that stuff was bugging me. I would have asked you to move it. I wouldn't have reported you, because that's what neighbors do, right? So yes, on the county level, I am so confused, Pat. Because multiple different townships. It shouldn't be this difficult. It wasn't that hard to get us to comply. Even though we refused to comply multiple times in a row, ended up with a $500 ticket for having a burn pile in our pallets. Pallets sticking out on our property. Our property, I should be able to store my pallets, okay? A county-wide blight ordinance is gonna be a disaster. That's the beauty of having our township run within township. We can be in control of our township. Tiny little 6 mile by 6 mile radius, it's a wonderful thing. You put the county in charge of it, and it takes away a lot of our township, what we can actually accomplish. Dave, you had a hard issue, or you had a really hard time telling us what specifically needed to be moved in our property. Now take that times, like a couple hundred people throughout the township, because we're gonna have, nosy Betty complain about the neighbor just because they want to. Are you really gonna be able to enforce that countywide? I mean, you already can't because you're not getting support from the sheriffs. I guess I'm really confused. I do think that countywide ordinance for the blight would be a disaster. That's horrible. It wouldn't fix anybody. That's it.
Anybody else?
Yeah. Kevin Murphy, a few meetings back, several, I was here and Darren Dodd asked about additional parking for across the street from us on the corner. Not knowing what was gonna go in, we thought mainly marijuana, which I'm against, but we thought that's probably what it's all about. Not a Dollar General. I would love to have any one of you guys come and spend a day in our showroom and watch how many cars make a U-turn. They're going eastbound and the wife says, honey, there's a Dollar General, pull in, just a minute, go through the light. There's no entrance. So they make a U-turn. I've been almost hit more than twice trying to pull out where the people are gonna turn around, or they go through our parking lot doing 30 miles an hour. It's not an exaggeration. That was a poor decision to allow them to have access to that only on 91. I know you guys can't change it, but there was no discussion about what was gonna be put in at that time, just additional parking. I think you guys need to watch what they allow and look at the different angles and things. It's really a hazard, the way people swing around through there. I don't blame them. I'd probably do the same thing. Damn, I can't turn in. And we're all guilty of it, and it's legal to do. It's really dangerous on that road because you know the way it angles. I mean, poor visibility. Control them. Thank you.
I do gotta admit, I did that twice before I finally realized and remembered there is not an entrance on 46. Sorry, Kevin. But I can see that being a real concern. And then to piggyback on Jess's comments here, and so it's known, we were fined $1,000 before we finally said we'll comply. And that was through the 2 tickets. And Dave, what is the most you find anybody that's been in this blight situation right now? I mean, as a total.
I don't,
One person, 2 tickets at 150 each?
yeah, I don't make the fines up. Our book has it in there. I have nothing to do with that. And then the magistrate decides, I don't know if our book has it,
Well, with all these hassles, why don't they just up the fines?
what's that?
I said, with all the hassles and besides going to the county and going to the sheriff, why don't they just up the fines?
Well, the fines aren't issued unless it goes, well, if I issue the ticket, then it gets in the process. Otherwise, I send a notice and there's no fines with that. But then whatever the book says I have to do within a certain time, then I do that, which is the ticket. And then when it goes to court, I don't know what our book says, the first time's a certain price, then the second time's more. Now for Maple Valley, their fines are totally different than ours. Every township has their own.
So that's falling under the zoning book?
Yeah, it's in our.
Who's writing that book? I guess that's my point. It seems like it would be cheaper to change, if the issues in Maple Valley and it's in Cato, instead of, what do we got, 25, 30 townships in the county? I mean, why make it such a big deal? If there's 2 townships, you up the fine. Otherwise, if I was getting a $75 fine, I'd still be paying it and say, screw you, property rights.
Yeah.
Especially with the atmosphere right now. And if she wasn't 9 months pregnant, that was my mindset. I would have gone to jail for it because the property rights issue is stupid.
Yeah.
If it was that big a problem, change the fine. Otherwise, yeah, $75, I'd be offering people rent and camping out in the backyard. Why not? It just seems like this could be fixed a lot simpler. Just my thoughts, again.
Anything else?
Instead of going on and month to month and fines and you're going to jail and everything, have you ever thought about allocating some funds and help some citizens, maybe, you know, to clean up their places, especially the ones that maybe financially can't afford to do it? I mean, I know that there's, within Michigan, I know plenty of other, counties that they actually help their citizens. And I think the Village of Lakeview has offered, they paid for dumpsters at times, I believe. But maybe work with the citizens instead of, you know, doing this month to month and fighting this and trying to find out, you know, driver's license numbers and going to court and doing that. Because I think that, one, neighbors probably would love it, you know, that live around there, to see that it's actually getting cleaned up. But I think maybe that might be something to look at, to help, you know, use some of our township funds to help, just a little bit, but a little bit helps a lot of citizens, so, thank you.
I'll second that.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Anybody else?
I wanna say what Kevin, I remember Kevin when he did that, when the village brought it to us, 'cause there is an outlet on the 46th, and must be MDOT shut it down, because I have I gotta find it here, but I have it on my phone. When I take a picture of the drawing, it shows an in and out on 46, and be on the very east side of the property. So I'm wondering if MDOT shut it down.
I heard that that's what happened.
Yeah, I mean, it is on the drawing, and, both 91 and 46.
They shouldn't
Does
allow
Dollar
the
General
building
want
then,
it?
should they?
I mean, they had enough spots, that's what they were showing, that's why I was looking at this, so they had enough spots to make it, and that's what I kept asking, I knew they would never be able to buy more property around it. And they said they could still make it do with both in and out, and then, that's like, I can think of, Kevin, is MDOT said they couldn't have two in and out to the state, but I know where Kevin, I mean, if they hadn't built there, they'd be through the light and turning where it has been, so. I'm not saying Kevin's wrong, I'm just saying, when we approved it, that it was in and out both places.
Well, if you're making a left hand, that might be in front of that light, I don't,
That might be what they.
two left hands right in a row. You gotta let people get it.
MDOT, probably 10 years ago, maybe it hadn't been that long, the township had asked for 45 speed limit, or speed limit change. We had more of a chance, there was a hearing, while the public wasn't invited, but they came, Pat was there, village. We had a better chance of raising it to 65 than we had to get it lowered. There was, they don't listen very good. Anything else?
I got a question for Dave. When you say you issue them a ticket, what does the ticket say?
It's just like, something the police use, the same thing, I think.
So,
I leave some blanks like speed
so
and all
when
that.
when do you go to the person with how much the fine's gonna be?
Oh, I don't tell them, I write it on the ticket now, before I get into court, said I need to, so I look it up in the zoning book, depending on, if it's, some townships have $100 to $500, I have to write that in a real small space, it's just 100-500, and the courts don't like that, but they said townships need to change it to, one set price, like the first time, it'd be $100, so I'd write 100 in, if it's a second ticket, to the same address, and it'd be $250 or $500, and, it's in the book, I don't make it up, it's, you know, whatever the
Well,
book
it's
says.
by
Every
each township,
Every
whatever their,
township,
right, right.
yeah, every township's different, whatever the book says, that's what I write down in there. Now, the violent warning, I don't have to have their driver's license or anything, I just fill out the form we have and mail it to them. Tells them they have 30 or 45 days, depending on which township, one township says.
Okay, then my question is, if Quakos could get however many citations that they've got, and they were threatened with jail, what on God's earth is stopping somebody from doing that on Paris Road?
I guess that's that's why I think it makes sense to have a unified approach, you know, have somebody on Paris Road getting a $75 slap on the hand, while they're paying $1,000. If we can get all the townships to adopt the same ordinance, township ordinance, then the county sheriff's department can enforce it, and everybody gets treated the same. But I don't care, I mean, that's up to the townships. I work for you guys, if you tell me you don't want any blade ordinance at all, we'll stop working on it.
So, say Maple Valley puts $1,000 on the very first ticket he writes, and then it's jail. I mean, is that what we're gonna have to do?
That's why I think the unified thing, so everyone has the same set of rules regardless of what township it is, that makes sense. And you guys draft, each township has that input on what that should be. But they need to be, the point is, they all need to be the same, because just like Quakel's pointed out, can you imagine the sheriff's department trying to enforce 20 different township ordinances and asking, just like they're asking Dave what the fine is for each one? It's all over the map, nobody can keep up with it. So if we adopt this boilerplate across the county that everyone can understand and it's all the same, it'll be enforced, it would be something to start with. That's what my point is, start with the low hanging fruit and address those things, and then when that's cleaned up or everyone's content, you can broaden it out and take on more if you want.
Per township, or are you talking to come back to the county?
No, this is gonna be county, the only county involvement in this is you're gonna use the county sheriff's department to enforce it. These are all gonna be individual township ordinance, and they all need to be the same, or you're not gonna stand a chance of having success with the sheriff's department enforcing it, if they're not all the same. Because the townships can have all the say in that they want in adopting it, but it needs to happen. If you kick it around for the next 2 years.
Well, I know for a fact that ours is $75, and that guy has paid $75 3 times. $75 is nothing.
We would still be paying if it was $75.
But that's what I'm saying, I mean,
And I'm pretty sure ours was written 100 to 500.
But what I'm
Who
saying
makes
is
that final
if-
decision
Yes.
of the charge?
if yours was different and ours is different and Cato's is different, when you're gonna call a cop, they're not gonna know.
The cop
Well,
should
they
be
didn't
responsible
even
for this if they can just
You-
find it.
To enforce it, you're gonna have to call the law. I mean, cause say they don't pay it, we're lost as a
Then they get a
township.
warrant. And
Yeah,
then the
and you go
police
to
will
jail.
enforce it.
Well, yeah, there you go, but they're not gonna know what your township law is, no more than they know what Maple Valley, than they know what Cato is.
And they shouldn't be involved, that's why we got Dave, that's his job. And I don't think he's not doing his job, I think
To make it straight in the past, years ago doing this, they have a copy of every, township, the, fines and penalties and this and that. I had to give them a copy of each township, so they know, cause everyone's different, you know, and, they couldn't keep up with how much,
I know this is breaking the rules, but they live in Cato Township. You've had a guy over by the lake for, I don't know, almost a year.
4 years.
So why ain't he getting the same fines as they got?
which lake, where?
The one I believe,
There's one at Town Line in Honeymoon Heights that's been 4 years, and there's one on Cutler Road that you're talking about tonight that's been over a year, and Quakos have had jail threatened. And
Yes, I'm
what
fine
happened?
with
that.
Why did that get threatened so,
I don't
why did
think
that
we
get
have one in,
expedited? The guy was here, Rascal Calvert was here a few months ago talking about it. She's been working on this for 4
How
years.
about the fences, these people were, I don't know where they're from.
the guy
Out of state,
that
maybe
is
out of the country.
land
I couldn't
contract
get any
has been on it
information
for over a year now, and what's the difference between that guy and these people who 6 months ago just got the fine? I'm confused of how you're enforcing that to them, but not to this guy.
Well, which guy are you talking about?
The
What
guy
street?
on the land contract,
Oh,
you
yeah.
give several tickets, you've been talking about it for not a couple years, a year at
Yeah.
least.
At least a year, yeah.
And he hasn't been threatened jail time, why is that? I'm confused.
Okay, what happened, he didn't pay his ticket. Now, what supposedly is supposed to happen, the guy's buying it on land contract.
So why did they get threatened jail and he refuses to pay?
Because they paid the ticket, what they're gonna do.
Because you paid the
you know,
Any ticket you don't pay, you get a warrant.
I don't know, well, he ended up, and I got the police involved in that too, and now I just issued a ticket to the landowner himself, because that guy's buying it on land contract. All them tickets are gonna go on the, guy's property tax when it's due, and then the guy buying it on land contract don't care, so I got a hold of the owner, and
Yeah, I
I think 12/2 or something, 45 days after that, I can write the ticket, and then the owner himself's gonna have to, I don't know, they'll either put him in jail or just keep adding fines. I've issued like 3 tickets to one place, and they just, some of them don't pay it. It's not up to me to say somebody's going to jail or nothing, that's not my, all I do is write the ticket. That's what's happening over there.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Please, please.
second that.
Anybody else want to talk? I'll second that.
I don't think so. We got a floor. Motion.